Okay. So I hereby call the December regular Library Board of Trustees for the Coeur d'Alene Public Library, all that meeting to order. We begin with public comment, and as a reminder that no person shall be permitted to speak unless they have their full name and city of residence on the provided sign-in sheet. Speakers are limited to 3 minutes. Groups representing a consistent viewpoint are strongly encouraged to select one spokesperson. Our first person signed up for public comment is Mariana Copper.
Can you hear me okay?
It might be muted if you hit the button.
Okay. Is that okay? Can you hear me? I'm clear that this board has no obligation outside of Coeur d'Alene. As a Kootenai resident, however, I do have a vested interest in CDA's library. So thank you for the opportunity to share public comments. Welcome to the new trustee, Melissa Carper-Bell. Since we haven't met, I'm with Clean Books for Kids. Our group helped to expose the abundance of sexually explicit materials for minors at CLN, which resulted in the voter rejection of the 2 incumbent library trustees last May. Speaking of trustees, Faye Sweeney's last day was September 30th, so it's interesting that CDA City Council didn't announce your appointment until November 7th, Election Day. Why not either of October City Council meetings? The Sorted Kids Books issue was part of the CDA City Council campaign, so one has to wonder if the seated City Council wanted to make your selection and announcement so the voters couldn't factor that into their votes for City Council. It's no secret that Clean Books for Kids worked with Coeur d'Alene's 3 City Council challengers to apprise them regarding the sexually explicit materials that minors can access here. I'm proud that those candidates were willing to call out this issue and incorporated it into their campaigns. In light of the election outcome, however, more public awareness of this issue is needed in Coeur d'Alene. You may know that the new CLN board is on the verge of finalizing revised policies that boldly address this assault on kids. When this happens, the Coeur d'Alene Library will be more exposed as the advocate of obscenity for kids. When embarking on this endeavor over 2 years ago, I was naive about how stridently some people would defend sexually explicit book for kids. Although the filth in these books still astounds me, I'm savvier now about the motives of those who would do so, and it has nothing to do with free speech. That's simply the cloak and cover. But for Idaho's affirmative defense statute, sexually explicit library books for kids would be prohibited. Who would have thought in 1972, when that exemption was passed, the floodgates would burst and there'd be no low too low for library materials for minors? Yet here we are with loads in CDA's collection. The list of these books is publicly available on the website for Clean Books for Kids. You can find examples, excerpts, features about your staff, and also photos of these books that Angela Flock chooses to proffer to minor patrons. According to the American College of Pediatricians in 2016, obscenity in the hands, hearts, and minds of minors degrades their psyches, erodes their understanding of sexuality, and destroys relationships and families. So what are your motives? To enlighten or degrade, enrich or erode, build or destroy? A trustee's 5-year term allows for plenty of time to turn this around. This explosion of corrosive books for kids occurred during Trustee Sweeney's lengthy tenure, a shameful legacy. Conversely, you can all be heroes for kids in our community. Take up the challenge. Clean Books for Kids would willingly work with Director Priest. Regardless, we will remain vigilant and continue to document, broadcast, and educate CDA citizens regarding what this board, Director Priest, and the teen and juvenile librarians are providing and promoting to kids.
Thank you. Our next public commenter is Coeur Claridge of Coeur d'Alene.
Is it necessary that I use the microphone?
I think we can hear you.
Okay.
I think it's, well, it helps me when they're helps me.
You maybe do, please, for a couple of trustees.
Okay. Well, I'd like to start by congratulating Melissa on her recent appointment to this board. And I hope that you consider fairly what's at play and help steer this board to a position that considers the well-being. I'm struggling to understand why staff are buying such disturbing books for kids and teens these days. The books containing pornography, obscenity, and unwholesome content remain. The thought process of this board and staff comes across to me as overemphasizing making everything available to anyone, regardless of age, in the name of free speech, but grossly overlooking the requirement to protect minors. Granted, you are thinly protected at the moment by an exemption put in place over 40 years ago for accidental distribution by a librarian. However, the degree to which this has been exploited, I'm sure, could not have been imagined by those who put it in place. Idaho Code 18-1550 makes it a crime to disseminate obscene materials to a child and is generally applied to people attempting to sexually abuse children. Even our sheriff has recently spoken out about what he has found in our local libraries. Legislation could be introduced again as early as January in the state legislature. The recent legal advice given to the CLN Library Board was to have a conversation about how you would deal with upcoming legislation. I think it would be best to figure it out now rather than face legal consequences later. I wonder if you've lost your way a bit in seeing how disturbing some of these teen books have become or how many classics have been weeded. I've been speaking up periodically over a few years as I've come across books with my kids. I have my 4 daughters here with me. We do use the library. It's not gotten better because the professional journals and most publishers that you lean on make ill-advised age and content recommendations. I have no plans to capitulate to evil when it comes to my children, really, or other people's children. Why do we need the zombies, the vampires, the devil packs, the demonic exorcists, the occult, and murder as normal fare? You just featured a new book for kids on your November 18th Facebook post that highlighted a book with a guide to witchcraft, next to a book on how Santa is going to get down the chimney. That's quite a contrast. Now, I guess it's not against the law to have demonic books for kids, but why? And if you really wanted to scoop on the demonic realm, you could read about it here, the Bible, the most banned book of all times, but this isn't highlighted on Banned Book Week. The constant agenda-driven books promoting trans poison to kids are also of grave concern. Take this book, Just Shy of Ordinary, already ordered, even though its release is still over a month away. A story for kids about a non-binary, gender-fluid young person. While in the meantime, I've asked twice and been denied twice for this book, She is She, and its companion, He is He. These books affirm a child's biological gender from birth. This comes across to me as viewpoint discrimination. I kind of wonder if the actual censorship sometimes and book banning is happening at the procurement phase. Nonetheless, I thank you for your time, and I would strongly encourage this board to listen to the voice of your community and prepare for what's ahead. Merry Christmas.
Thank you. Next on the agenda is the consent calendar. This is a group of items that are typically approved with a single motion. Is there a motion regarding our consent calendar?
I move we accept it as presented.
Okay. And is there a second?
I second
Is
I do have a question,
yes,
if I
you
may.
have time for it.
On the general ledger, and perhaps it was because I was gone this summer, but there's part of our income is a state grant for $5,000 and a federal grant for $38,983, and I don't recall what those are for or why those are in the budget.
Okay, state grant is anticipated. So usually each year it's mainly through the Idaho Commission for Libraries. We apply for several grants throughout the year. We often get them, sometimes we don't, but typically we get about $5,000 worth of grants through the state, typically the state library. And the federal grant was something that was added by the city. So I think when we were discussing the budget, we were working on the 2023-24 budget. There were bonuses paid out to staff, full-time, non-exempt staff. And so this was to make this happen, ARPA funds that the city had received previously were used.
All right, thank you.
And I had a question too. Let's see if I can find it.
Was it the budget?
Well, yes, on the
Okay.
budget. But with the computer maintenance that close to 50% of the yearly budget has been spent, and I was curious what was going on.
Yeah. So we have our rotation policy that Christopher kind of put into action, updating all the equipment on a 5-year cycle. Basically, this year he put his orders in pretty early in the fiscal year, so he ordered a whole bunch of new desktop computers to replace existing ones. Got a good deal at the time, so went forward with that, and that's why you can see it's fairly well spent at this time.
Great. Great. Any other questions regarding things on the consent calendar? Seeing none, all those in favor of adopting the consent calendar as presented, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The consent calendar passes as presented. Next, we have Michael's director's report.
Okay, a few things to report on. The first thing is a follow-up from last meeting. We were discussing the low-level entrance art project that we had received the donation for. I was telling you about the change of direction for that. So it's gone through several different iterations. First it was going to be sculptures, then it was going to be an awning that was kind of sculptural in the way it looked. What we're going to do now is move a little bit further down to the blank concrete panels above the children's library and use that as a background for some sculptural pieces that could be attached. And so I presented that to the Arts Commission at their November 28th meeting. They're still on board. They like the idea. So we are working on finalizing the call to artists that will be run through their channels.
Through theirs.
Yeah, to try and engage artists interested in the project. Assuming we get a few submissions, we'll go through those submissions and pick out the artist who we feel really fits the call. So that's where we're at with that one. Tyler can maybe talk to this a little bit because I was not here for it, but the Education Committee of the Coeur d'Alene Chamber of Commerce presented the library with its A+ Education Award at the Upbeat Breakfast on November 14th. So Tyler stepped in and accepted it. So did Steve, you were there? And did you go? Yes. So thank you for that. And it was a nice thing to receive. Anything to add?
No, that was lovely.
They also acknowledged all of the city, the school district librarians, which I thought was really, really nice of them to do.
Nice. So another good news is Novalis, I think that's how you say it, of Spokane Valley, is a manufacturer, aluminum mainly products. So what they have a community programming initiative, particularly in the field of STEM, so science, technology, the engineering, mathematics. They're looking at projects in the community that they can fund and encourage growth, particularly for kids in those areas. So we were lucky enough to receive $3,500 to fund equipment, tools, things that can really help us as we work on providing programming and also STEAM opportunities for kids particularly. That was nice to receive as well. And then just lastly, some staffing updates. The part-time reference clerk position, which was added this year, we filled that with Laurel Hoffman. She's a circulation clerk here. And that position's going to specialize in library outreach out in the community, so assisting Shar and Jessica. What we've decided to do, because we know that Charlie needs assistance in the children's library, Jessica has a background in education. She was interested in filling that part-time that role in a part-time capacity. So Jessica is going to split herself between outreach and assisting Charlie in the children's department. So that was still a priority to ensure we get Charlie some help down there. And so Laura will pick up the 20 hours in outreach that Jessica will be foregoing. So it all kind of works out the way we wanted it to. It's just a slightly different way we're doing it. And that's it. Any questions?
Thanks, Michael. Moving on to our other reports. City Council Liaison, did I see that Kiki joined us online?
Yeah. Are you there, Kiki?
I see that she.
I am. Am I unmuted on your side?
Yes.
Okay, as long as you can hear me, I apologize for not being there. My family has caught that virus and I'm not going to share. So I just was going to mention a couple things. If you'd been watching, our impact fee hearings had been postponed. So they'll be on the agenda again in December and in January. And that's kind of a big deal for our city and staff. We haven't updated those fees for way overdue, in fact, close to 20 years. So it's going to be a one we have to spend a lot of time and be very judicious on how that ends up. And the other item is there's discussion of a budget team coming together early in the year. Michael may remember if this was brought up at executive team, I'm not sure, but putting together some council members, some department heads, some getting the finance people together and start looking at some budget items early on in the year rather than waiting till our workshop, which is later in the spring. So I think our last budget cycle was difficult and everybody involved wants to make sure we get more of a jump on it than we have in the past. And if anybody has a question for me, I can pretty much hear you.
Thank you, Kiki. We're not seeing any having any
Great.
questions. Appreciate you joining us today.
Be well.
Thank you.
Next, we have our student representatives, and I see both Ayla and Lola have joined us today. Anything either of you would like to report?
Just a quick information on what's going on in teen world recently. The Creative Arts Club that happens on Thursdays has changed to Cozy Arts for the month of December. I learned how to crochet last week and I'm very excited to see if I can proceed learning on tomorrow. And we will be taking the second half of December and I believe the first half of January off for teen programs. And I have noticed a lot more students, including myself, using the library for studying since it is finals week. Wish us luck on that. I don't have anything to say.
Thank you, and thanks for being here today. Back to Michael for the Friends of the Library report.
The Friends met yesterday. You'll see the Christmas tree and various other decorations around the library. They did their annual thing and helped us out by setting up decorations all around. So they're really happy they did that again. There was not a lot else to report. It's pretty quiet for the Friends at the moment. Mainly just, yeah, they were talking about next year and certain projects they might be looking forward to. Shred Day, for example. They're a little uncertain on whether they're going to continue that, given it's not had the turnout that it has had in previous years. I mean, still solid, 100 people, both in 2022 and 2023. So they're weighing up whether they're going to continue with it next year, but they've got a bit of time to decide. Typically they do that in April to fit in with tax season. Maybe they could push it to May, particularly since there's a lot of other shredding events around that time. They were thinking if they're a little later, maybe they'll hit people who missed it or forgot. So that's,
Is that a day-long process?
usually
Is
it's
that
only
what
a
they do?
few hours in the
Few
morning.
hours,
Usually it's a
okay.
Saturday. We hire a shred truck
Mhm.
and then people stop by and unload all of their documents in the shred truck. And that's it.
Thank you. And Holly, please tell us what's up with the Library Foundation.
Well, number one is Steve and his wonderful donation of his book and all the proceeds he's giving us. A lot of people came and listened to him talk about his book. It was a great evening, and so far we've earned $1,520 and more to come, according to Steve. And Wellwood Moose is also selling them there as well. So 100% of the proceeds come to the Library Foundation. Thank you. Annual campaign went out in the mail a couple of weeks ago. We're focusing on the teen area. So far, we've got about $8,000 that have come in, which is great. That's usually our, as soon as it hits the mail, they usually turn around and throw their money at us. So, but we usually get quite a bit more for it. So it will come through the end of the year, and usually by the 15th of January, we'll have the max of that. So Betty and our new board member helped us design it this time. It's been very well received. Pretty fun. We were in the lighting parade right after Thanksgiving. That was successful, and we had got Susan had got new decorations for the Mudgee Mobile, so it looked a little more spruced up than normal. So that was great. Still selling art in the area back in there. We've earned about $550 so far. And again, that's donated art and photography from Duke. Sing Along is this coming Saturday. It starts at 11 o'clock. Mudgee and Millie will be here. Santa will be here. Susan will read the new Hawaii book, which is just so full of color and fun. And sing our normal Christmas songs, and Santa will sit for photographs as well as Mudgee and Millie. So if you have any kiddos, let them know that we'll be here from 11 to noon, and 12:30 usually is when we're finished with that. But just had a conversation with a photographer that lives in Laguna Beach, used to live here, that wants to have a project with kids department, either photography or art, and wants to contribute some funds. So Michael, you and Charlene, I mean, get together and see what he wants, some ideas before he'll commit to exactly how much money to donate. But I think that sounds interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we have our last monthly meeting at Susan Nibb's house next week. Jim, are you going to be able to attend that one? It's the 13th.
I'm not sure yet, but
Okay.
I will.
If not, let me know so we can invite one of the other.
Okay.
We kind of like to show off Susan Nibb's house. It's so wonderful. We always like to have our liaison at that meeting too. And we'll have our officers election. So, let me know.
Okay, thanks.
That's all I have.
And I'd like to add that what you said about the annual campaign flyer. Yeah, it was very eye-catching when we got it in the mail. Both my wife and daughter mentioned it. It's like, oh, this looks great. So.
Excellent.
We have no unfinished business, so we will move on to our new business. The first is welcoming our new trustee, Melissa Carper-Bell, and I will allow her to introduce herself.
Thank you. I am thrilled. I think this is was a wonderful opportunity. I am from Coeur d'Alene. My family lives here and I have 2 young boys, and we use the library frequently as we can, and the new play structure is phenomenal. It has been very entertaining for them, and I have a 2-year-old who spent a lot of time discovering all the nooks and crannies, and my 7-year-old, I think I've had my proudest moment as a mom recently because I've had to tell him to shut off his lights and go to bed and stop reading because sleep is very important. And so we are huge supporters of the library in my home, and knowing that I'm raising 2 children who love to read has always been a huge value for me as a parent. And so I'm thrilled to see what this, my service as a trustee can do for my community. Thank you.
Thank you. And we do have one action item under new business, and that is creating a subcommittee for the election of officers. So a motion for this would probably be a volunteer to head that committee. So I will welcome a motion.
For the longest time, it was Faye.
Faye and Ann, back and forth, Faye and Ann, back and forth.
Oh, Anne has experience?
Oh, yeah.
Whereas Steve wants it.
I'll do it.
Okay. Then
Is it just a one-person committee?
That's the way it's been.
Yeah, we've had to a few times, but you can always check in with everybody. And you know you have to get permission from the person.
Okay, I'll do that.
okay,
That's fine.
would you please word it as a motion?
I move that Steve be the nominating committee.
Okay. Thank you. Is there a second?
I second.
The motion is for Steve to head our subcommittee for the election of officers this year. Is there any discussion?
Thank you, Steve.
Thank you. So all those in favor of having Steve head that subcommittee, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries. Steve will be the head of our subcommittee for election of officers, and we'll report back at our next meeting on that.
So when is the election?
Well, we need, January's
January.
your annual meeting.
Okay.
We do elect the officers or vote to elect the officers. So you're just filling chair and vice chair. So by January 24th.
Okay, that's fine.
Are there any other things to be brought up under new business? I have one with the public comment mentioning that there may be legislation coming. If there is legislation before the legislature regarding libraries in January, could we invite the city attorney
Certainly, yeah.
to speak with us on that?
That would be
And that's definitely contingent on what's happening in the legislature at that time.
In fact, probably monthly as things come up, because sometimes they don't come up in the first month, and they aren't even raised or nominated in the first month, so as maybe other months too as appropriate.
Okay. Seeing no other new business, our next regularly scheduled meeting right now is January 24th, 2024, 4 p.m. here again in the library community room. We anticipate
That works
having
for
a
me.
quorum.
Before we adjourn,
Yes.
do we happen to have some high school government students here today?
We are, yes.
Would you like to tell us what school you're from and who your government teacher is?
We're from Coeur High School. Our teacher is Mr. Walters.
Okay, and I'm sure you need something signed, and our chair will be happy to sign it for you and write a naughty note to Mr. Walters.
Excuse me, Mr. Chair.
What did you
Mr.
say?
Chair, can you hear me?
Yes.
It's Kiki again. Sorry, Mr. Chair. Can I, before we adjourn, can I just make one more comment? I forgot.
Yes, please.
I meant to tell you, if you hadn't seen it on the city website, I was sworn in on the Association of Idaho Cities Board. And so I will be able to follow more closely all kinds of legislation that's happening. I'll be there for a board meeting in January, and I can bring back information about anything that's pertinent to the library at that time. And I'm working on moving forward some legislation that I think we just got a sponsor for in the housing arena. So I'm doing a little more Boise traveling, and we'll keep anyone and everyone informed of anything that might be pertinent.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Yep, sorry I forgot that earlier. You guys all have a very happy holiday, Merry Christmas season.
Thank you. You too.
You too. And get better.
And so that adjourns the regular Library Board of Trustees meeting for December 2023. Thank you.